I'd like to invite our next speaker, Dr. George Annor, who is going to give us an insight on potential of cold plasma technology in ensuring the safety of foods and agricultural produce. A little bit about Dr. George. He's an assistant professor of cereal chemistry and technology at the University of Minnesota, where he also chairs the General Mills Endowed Professorship. He earned his PhD in food science from the University of Guelph, focusing on millet starches and their digestibility. Dr. Annor holds a bachelor's degree in nutrition and food science and a master's in food science from the University of Ghana, where he later became a faculty member. His expertise includes process optimization using statistics and collaboration with various companies such as Megazyme International and Ajinomoto Inc., as well as international organizations like the World Food Program and the Food and Agriculture Organization. Welcome, Dr. George. We are looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes,
So if you allow me to share my screen, that would be great. Okay. Can you all see my screen now?
yes, we can see it.
Okay. All right. So thank you for the introduction and thank you for the invitation. It's just a little bit of update on my status at the university. I'm now an associate professor and also a McKnight professor at a McKnight Presidential Fellow at the university. So as you said, I'm originally from Ghana, so I've always been interested in research or technologies that would benefit developing countries as a whole. So today I'm going to talk about cold plasma technology, and I'm sure some of you might have heard of this technology, but it's something that I have been working on in my lab for the benefit of all. So what is cold plasma? It's a very simple technology, and we are exposed to cold plasma or plasma every day in our lives. It's basically a non-thermal processing technology that involves the generation of very reactive species by using electricity or some form of energy. It could be from a microwave source, it could be from radio frequency, but some form of energy. Now, if you turn on your light switch at home and you have what we call a fluorescent tube, and once you turn it on, you apply electricity to that tube, you see light. Once you turn off the electricity, the light goes off. That is a very simplistic explanation of what plasma generation is. So we are leveraging the energy from electricity to produce very reactive species. Why is this important? Well, when you produce cold plasma, you generate all these different kinds of compounds or different kinds of units. So you can produce reactive species that I've talked about. There is nitrates, there's nitrites, there is reactive oxygen, singlet oxygen. You also produce a lot of ions. In addition to that, there is some heat that is produced from cold plasma. You also have electromagnetic fields, visible light, so you actually see the cold plasma as you saw in the slide before. And there's some UV radiation. Now, if you look at all these, you immediately will start thinking about how these can impact food processing, how this can impact the processes, the properties of food, or how can we use this to keep food safe? So that is some of the things we've been doing in my lab. Now, one note here is that when you create these ions or reactive species, they are very much unstable. So when you create them, they are so unstable that they would want to go back to their natural state. So that is something to take note of, because in subsequent slides, I will talk about another thing that we make called plasma activated water. So this is the system that I have in my lab. And even though the name sounds like very fancy, they are pretty much very simple equipment. The system that I have, this is an actual picture. I have two units. So I have one that we call atmospheric cold plasma. unit, and one that is called low pressure cold plasma unit. So you can literally create cold plasma in a vacuum if you want. So the one that we usually use is this one, made by a company in Wisconsin. Not so much expensive. You can actually get a brand new unit now for about $5,000. They are actually commercially available cold plasma units. So this technology is not something that we are now testing. It is something that could actually be scaled up. So as I said, you have a gas in there. It could be air, it could be oxygen, it could be helium, whatever gas you want. It passed through an electrode. There's an electrical discharge, and then you get the cold plasma come out through the other end. So what are some of the things that we've been trying to do with cold plasma, or what's some of the things that has been done? Well, I had a student from India visit my lab, and one of the things that she was interested in doing was to see if we can reduce mycotoxins in red chilies. And India is big when it comes to chilies, of course, in a lot of developing countries. Aside trying to reduce the mycotoxins, we wanted to see how the cold plasma would impact the antioxidant capacity, polyphenol content, and many other properties. So we treated these red chilies with the cold plasma. And as you can see in the picture, these are chili that are not treated, and these are the ones that are treated. Actually, this is the control, and we had different times. So as the picture goes by, we have increasing time. And it was clear from this image that after we treated the plasma, we were able to reduce the amount of mycotoxins, which is actually true. Mycotoxins are one of the compounds that are so difficult to deal with, but there is evidence to show that cold plasma can actually degrade them. But one of the things we saw, which we thought was a negative impact, was the loss of that red color from the chili. So that wasn't good news for us. So we thought about trying to optimize the treatment times, maybe do a shorter treatment, still be able to keep our red color, and then still be able to break down the mycotoxins. Now, this is how we think that the cold plasma actually affect the mold or microorganisms in general. Now, when you are looking at mycotoxins, one action would be to kill the mold, and the other would be to decompose the mycotoxins that have been produced. Now, all the ions and the electrons and the excited atoms, the UV and reactive species that are produced, we believe have direct impact on the cells of these microbes. In fact, there's evidence to show that they actually can break the cell walls of these microbes, therefore resulting in a leakage of the inner part of these microbes and therefore killing them. That is big because cold plasma, we know, is something that has been used for disinfection for non-food uses. Now we are trying to see how we can apply it to food. Now, there was another study that clearly demonstrated that when you treat microorganisms, whether non-pathogenic E. coli or the pathogenic ones that really cause disease, we see that with increase in the treatment time, we have a significant increase in how much of these microbes you kill. So it is evident that cold plasma can be effective. Now, it is important to note that when we're treating foods with cold plasma, it's more of a surface phenomenon. So the matrix of that food should be taken into account. Okay. Well, some of the pros and cons of the use of cold plasma for mycotoxin removal are listed here. The good news is they are non-thermal, so they don't produce heat, so you keep a lot of your heat-sensitive nutrients in there. There are no chemical residues because most of these reactive species go back to the original state. We know they degrade mycotoxins. They also inactivate a lot of the microorganisms that produce the mycotoxins. We think it's cost effective. It is not very expensive. In fact, farmers can have these units on their farms. And I foresee a future where this technology would be very, very much used in developing countries and especially in a lot of African countries because we do have serious issues with mycotoxins. We also know it results in good quality retention of food properties. It doesn't really change some of the food properties, but when you are using it for any foods that contain lipids, Our simple food chemistry tells us that if you have lipids and you have reactive species, you get into the issue of lipid oxidation or degradation. We've had some issues with upscaling, but as I said, there are companies that are working on that. There are commercial scale units. And again, as I said, poor penetration. It is a surface phenomenon. So when you are treating your foods, take that into account. In my lab, we have used cold plasma to modify starches. Well, starch modification is a big thing here in a lot of developed countries. So they essentially would take starch, modify it with chemicals, and therefore improve the functionality. Well, these chemicals, in as much as they are effective and useful, they generate waste. So we have been able to at least prove that we can use cold plasma as a way to get some of the properties that you will typically get from the chemical modification of starch without creating or being concerned about all these chemical waste that we are so much concerned about. So, as I said, plasma, the reactive species are very unstable. So one of the ways to actually store these reactive species is make what we call plasma activated water. We typically would take just water. It could be tap water, distilled water, any source of water, and we bubble the cold plasma in that water. The good thing is that all these reactive species are trapped in that water, and you can use it for a lot of applications, for disinfection, for modifying foods, for a lot of applications without being worried about losing all these reactive species. So this is what we usually do in my lab. So as you can see, this is the cold plasma unit. We bubble water. And as I said, any type of water you want. We bubble the water with the cold plasma at different times. Now, when we started this experiment, one of the questions we had was, how does the water change when you bubble cold plasma through it? So we did this short experiment where we took 1 liter of water, right? So this TC is control, and we treated it for 5, 15, 30, 20 minutes. And the T is for tap water, and the D is for distilled water because we wanted to see whether the composition of the water had any impact. Well, this is what we found. So we treated it for 60 minutes, up to 60 minutes. We analyzed these water samples after letting it sit for 24 hours. And this is what we found. Now, as the treatment went on, we saw a significant drop in pH. So that water became acidic. pH dropped all the way from around 7 or 8 to around 2. Really acidic. What is causing that decrease in pH? There is a lot of production of hydrogen peroxide. And if you know anything about microbiology, hydrogen peroxide is effective in killing microorganisms. That is not the only thing we found. We also saw that what we call the oxidative reductive potential, pretty much how reactive that water is, significantly increased. We haven't added any chemical. This is just bubbling cold plasma through it. The conductivity of that water also significantly increased, and it just kept going on and on and on. Total dissolved starch, total dissolved salt also increased. Again, we haven't added any salt to this. What was interesting to us, and this is where we think it has a lot of impact on agriculture, is the amount of nitrate and nitrite. We had a significant increase in nitrates in the water as we treated it with cold plasma. Why does this matter? Well, if you are in organic farming, you cannot buy conventional fertilizer. If you make this cold plasma, you can literally create your own fertilizer by increasing or having nitrates in that water that could be used as by the plant. Where is this nitrate coming from? We believe that the cold plasma unit is taking nitrogen from the air and literally breaking that nitrogen down and incorporating it into the water. There is actually ample evidence to show that in areas where they have a lot of thunderstorms with a lot of lightning, they actually have a lot of nitrate in their soil because that is nature's own way of cold plasma. When we look at nitrite, we saw an increase in nitrite, but then a significant decrease. What we have seen or believe is happening is that This nitrite, which is very unstable, is actually being converted to nitrate, and that is what is resulting in that increase in nitrate. Ammonium nitrogen also went up, not as much as the nitrate, but ammonium nitrogen is also one of the nutrient that is needed by plants. And of course, because we had a lot of these nitrates and nitrite and salt, the hardness of the water went up. Other questions that I've gotten so far is, well, if I make my plasma activated water, how long can I keep it for? Is it stable? Will it go back to normal water after a day or two? Well, no. We did an experiment where we made plasma activated water. We kept it for 30 days. And as you can see here, the pH remained just around the 2 mark. It did not go back to 8 or 7 or where we started from. This tells us that you can actually store this plasma activated water for at least a month. I'm sure we could have gone way more, but this is a big deal for farmers if they want to use this. So you can essentially make the plasma activated water and store them in tanks and use it for whatever application you want on your farm. Here is also the conductivity that also stayed or remained the same. So it did not change. Well, how does this matter? One of the questions we asked, we were wondering was, well, if we use plasma activated water versus normal tap water to germinate seeds, what impact would we see? Well, it was significant. The picture on the top here is seeds wheat germinated for 7 days with tap water. And the picture you see here, the same wheat samples, wheat seeds, germinated with plasma activated water for 7 days. And it is clear from the picture that the seeds germinated with plasma activated water responded way more to the plasma activated water, which means they were growing faster than when we use the tap water. Could it be the nitrate and the nitrite? Could it be the increase in conductivity? Maybe. We believe that is the case. Now, when we measured the plumule and the radicle of these seeds, it was clear. So this here is the plumule for the seeds that were germinated with tap water. And you can see a clear, significant difference in the plumule of the seeds germinated with plasma activated water. It's the same for the radical. Okay. When we did this on a perennial grain called intermediate wheatgrass, which is, by the way, the first ever commercially available perennial grain that could be grown and harvested over a period of 3 years without having to plant it every year. It's being developed at the University of Minnesota. So it has significant issues with germination, partly because of the way it is processed. So we decided to test on that. And you can clearly see tap water germinated with intermediate wheatgrass germinated with tap water. Barely any of the seeds germinated. You have two and a few, but with the plasma activated water, you can see a much better response. Okay, so if you have issues with germination, and we've tried this on other seeds, we were able to increase germination rate of soybeans by as much as 30% by just using plasma activated water. The same graph here as wheat, and it was clear day and night as to how much the seeds germinated with plasma activated water responded. Well, what about growing plants with plasma activated water? I currently am on a grant with a federal grant with with Cornell University and UC Davis, where we are looking at exploring plasma activated water for organic farmers. This is just a picture that we took. The picture on the left is tomatoes that is grown with tap water. And the picture on the right is tomatoes that is grown with plasma activated water. We haven't added any nutrients, anything. They were all treated the same. And you can see that difference. We are currently harvesting the tomatoes that we got from these two different sets of experiments to see whether there's an increase in yield. And if there is, we want to also see whether the nutrient profile actually changed because of the use of plasma activated water. I like baking. So just on the side note, we tried the use of plasma activated water for baking. It did not physically change the structure of the bread, but what we saw was that as we increase the pH, the longer we treated the plasma activated water for, pH goes down. So the lower pHs that we use resulted in breads that were lighter in color. Pretty much that low pH was inhibiting the Maillard reaction. But the idea here was, could we actually disinfect wheat, flour by treating them with plasma activated water prior to baking? Because a couple of years ago, General Mills had a big issue with people eating raw cookie dough and therefore being infected with E. coli. So these are some of the interesting things that we're doing in my lab. This, I think, is a technology that can significantly improve food security in a lot of developing countries. And my group and I are doing our best to start to get this technology out. And so this is my email. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I would end here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that enlightening and highly relevant presentation. I have one question. What are the potential limitations or health concerns with cold plasma-related foods, and how can we ensure consumer confidence in this emerging technology?
All right, so thank you. So that is actually a question we've been asking ourselves. As far as we know, we haven't seen any potential negative health effect. But I will say here, I'm not asking anybody to drink plasma activated water or apply cold plasma to their skin. There are actually small cold plasma units where people can actually use for some skin issues, but there have been one or two studies that have shown that when rats were fed with produce that were treated with cold plasma, they did not actually see any impact on any of their organs. So that is good news, but there's still a lot of work that has to be done in that realm to help establish the safety of cold plasma. I personally don't see any issues, but we still have to collect that data.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. George. We thank you for your time and the effort you've put into this presentation. And I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you. It's actually good. It's actually 9 a.m. here, and I'm
Oh,
actually at a
it's
conference.
morning. Yeah.
Yes, it's morning.
Oh, okay. It's evening. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Uh, we are going to our next session, the paper presentations. And if you submitted a paper and it was accepted, kindly drop your details in the chat box. And I'd like to invite Happiness to take over the session. And I really appreciate the audience for being attentive and engaging throughout this the second session. And yeah, thank you. Bye.
um, item. So now um, we'll be presenting some papers. So I have quite a number of presenters here today who will be presenting the papers. So the first topic will be food contamination in Nigeria, an analysis of Lagos State case study. This will be presented by Bolarewa Adebisi. Second topic is the impact of solar dryers on food safety and public health. This will be presented by Eric. The third one, building climate resilient farming system, urgent action for northern Nigerians in the face of flood and drought. So this will be presented by Dr. Modu. The fourth one is veterinary drug residue in food products of animal origin and their public health consequences, a review by Yashambel. And the fifth one was food security and safety challenges amidst climate and economic turbulence, a case of Malawi. And this will be presented by Robert. We have the last presenter, the last topic here, advancing water treatment techniques, magnetic nanocomposites for the removal of sulfur metaxazole in drinking water source. And this will be presented by Zacchaeus. So for our first presenter, Bolarewa DBC, I don't know if you're there. If you're there, can you unmute and just say hi?